Good evening and welcome. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Nevada City Council to order. Let's get all settled in, folks.
Hi, Joan.
Let's settle in. Okay, I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Nevada City Council to order. Today's Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. It's 6:30 p.m. Welcome. We're going to start with the Nisenan tribe recognition. That'll be led by my colleague, Mr. Peterson.
We acknowledge that the Nisenan people are still here among us today, though nearly invisible. We understand that we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the near genocide of their people. As a resident or visitor in Nisenan land, we support the Nevada City Wachiria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people as well as their campaign to restore federal recognition.
Thank you, Gary. Can I ask the Vice Mayor to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join me in our pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lou. Madam Deputy City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember Fleming.
Here.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cece.
Here.
Mayor Klein.
I'm also here. Thank you very
I'm
much.
here.
Council and council, now is the time for any agenda modifications. Would you like to make any additional changes to the agenda, pull consent items, or do we have any recusals to announce?
Make sure it's on.
Dean, do you have anything?
I do, Mr. Mayor. On business item number 5, we need to modify this item as it's been agendized. It's currently agendized for a discussion of both a general business zoning district ordinance modification and a discussion of temporary structures used during construction. There will be no discussion of the general business zoning district ordinance tonight, as this council has currently an appeal pending before it under that ordinance, and we can't have any discussion about that ordinance prior to the council hearing that appeal. So that discussion will be limited to temporary structures used during construction.
Thank you, Dean. Any other modifications, council?
Got none.
Okay. Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion and a second to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Fernandez, a second by Vice Mayor Cece. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Now it's time for public comment on matters not on the agenda. Government Code Section 54954.3 provides that any member of the public may address the City Council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow the council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. The council cannot take action on non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. Please note that comments from the public will also be taken on the consent calendar and each agenda item at the time it is heard. Do we have any public comment on matters not already on the agenda?
Yes.
Great. Come to the microphone.
Hey, Gordon.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Gordon Gossage with Regenesis Planet. When I offer you my 3-minute comment, cast my vote, or advocate for a cause, I'm engaged in a spiritual practice as a path of awakening and a method for developing my virtues, patience, courage, and compassion. Democracy is more than just a set of laws. Democracy is a lived discipline, serving, listening, and resolving differences through cooperation rather than conflict. I urge you to embrace this spiritual political platform. I urge you to shift the focus from winning power to cultivating inner transformation and collective well-being. I urge you to commit to cooperation and truth-telling even when it results in a political loss. I urge you to see political opponents not as enemies, but as our neighbors who often deeply fear the future and their role in it. I urge you to hold your personal opinions lightly, admit when you're wrong, and maintain inner peace regardless of political outcomes. I urge you to recognize We are all interconnected. No one is truly free until all are free. When you experience democracy through a spiritual lens, individual rights become pathways into deeper civic engagement. Voting becomes a way to connect with our truest self and the community we share. Voting becomes a commitment to the flourishing of future generations, not only the interests of the present. Freedom of speech becomes a sacred trust, meant for reasoning together, seeking truth, and building our community. In closing, please treat public service, whether as an elected leader or as a citizen, as a spiritual practice that transforms you into who you are always meant to be, through the steady pursuit of the common good for all the neighbors we share. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon.
Thank you, Gordon.
Is there any other public comment on matters not on the agenda? Yes, there is.
Good afternoon, City Council. Mayor Klein, pleasure to see you tonight. My name is Daniel Batchelor, owner of Elevation here in Nevada City. First, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Nevada City's Public Works Department for keeping our roads, specifically the Seven Hills Business District, clear and plowed for the duration of our last snowstorm. Secondly, I'd like to give a huge thank you to our police department for plowing our parking lot with their sweet Jeep Wrangler the morning of the 17th before our contracted plowing company made it on site. On the other hand, I'm disappointed in the handling of Nevada City's media releases, specifically concerning directions regarding the storm. I understand that weather conditions vary from what is predicted and agree that the safety of our community should be prioritized, but Elevation, along with many other small businesses locally owned in our area, were prepared for the snow, and we had done this for the norm. To get a few inches of snow is normal living in the foothills. To prepare for the annual snowfall, Elevation has contracted for the last 8 years with C&D Construction and Wise Brothers to plow and maintain services to ensure our parking lots and sidewalks are safe for our patrons to access our businesses. While I appreciate the need for safety, in my opinion, the media releases and social media alerts issued by the city were overly alarmist, implying that all business operations should stop and travel should be avoided at all costs were over the top. These social media posts received over 8,034 likes, more than 59 public reposts, and 725 directly shared messages. Nevada City's posts included messaging like, only travel if it's a true emergency, stay home, stay safe, and do I want to have my picture on Ubinet? These posts created a loss of revenue for local businesses, including ours, which are fully capable of operating safely with a couple inches of snowfall. For many, a day or two of unnecessary closure causes significant, often irrevocable economic losses. When the city releases multiple videos and posts for 5 days straight, encouraging customers to stay at home and not shop, it directly and negatively impacts sales for these businesses who remain open as conditions allow. Our team members rely on our business remaining open, and although conditions differ around the county, within Nevada City itself, the roads were, for the most part, navigable and businesses were accessible. Despite that, the city continued to issue warnings and notices to remain home and not to travel. Effective communication should empower businesses and patrons to make informed decisions based on the specific situation, rather than blanket one-size-fits-all announcements that cause unnecessary disruption. I request that future weather announcements and the future weather events.
Thank you, Daniel. We got the gist.
This letter was endorsed by Jernigan's, Purist, Minor Mo's, Florissy,
Thanks, Daniel.
HHCO, Longevity.
Appreciate it.
And several other entities.
Is there any other public comment on matters not on the agenda?
I'm Paul Money, and I live at 134 Mine Rock Road where it intersects with Searles. And over the past 2 years I've lived there, other than other places in Nevada City, but I live there with my son, and it's continuously inundated with speeders on Searles. And I spoke with the police chief this morning, or this afternoon, and he said that roughly 5% of the people that drive on that road are speeding. So that equates, because of his numbers, to 60 people per day. And that's only of the people that have a 2013 or newer car, can they figure out how fast they're going. I myself, between my son and I, we have 5 or 6 vehicles that are older than 2013. So his numbers are skewed. I just would like something to be done about how fast people travel on that road. The major concern is people trying to cross the road to get to the mailbox without having to walk all the way down 2 elevations to cross and then come back up and then go all the way back. I've watched an elderly lady try to cross for 10 or 15 minutes before. I hardly ever see any traffic of a police vehicle, and I've never seen anybody pulled over other than for a DUI. When I was speaking to the police chief on the phone, miraculously, there's a patrol car out in front on the street where all this occurs. I'm not sure if he pulled anybody over, because it wasn't a heated conversation, but it was definitely a one-sided, well, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do this, we can't put in a speed bump, we can't put in a stop sign or a crosswalk. There's other places that are faster, quickly traveled, and are more of a danger. And I don't know how long the police chief has been here, but he's had time to look at these numbers and actually go by, because the chief said that he lived up the street from me. I didn't know this until I spoke with him today. But he said, well, I don't think that it's a problem. Well, if you're the police chief and you're working 5 12-hour days, you're only there at that site for 15 seconds coming and going from home. I'm there every day because I'm retired. I work in my yard all day long. I see it happening over and over again. And I just would like some kind of something to be done. And it doesn't seem like the chief wants to do anything about it. And so that's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comment on matters not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. Before we take action on the consent calendar, we will hear any public comment on consent calendar items only. Do we have any public comment on consent items? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move we approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Peterson and a second from Vice Mayor Sisi. Do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sisi?
Yes.
Mayor Klein?
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Moving on to business. Business item number 5, direction to staff to begin preparation of ordinance amendments pertaining to the use of temporary structures during construction.
And Mr. Mayor, just a point of order is there was people, audience members that arrived late. For those that arrived late, there will be no discussion by the council of the general business zoning ordinance whatsoever tonight, only a discussion of the temporary structures used during construction.
Thank you for that clarification, Dean.
Because, did you?
Sure. That's because the council currently has an appeal before it pending related to the general business zoning ordinance, district ordinance, and the council may not have a discussion prior to heard that appeal.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. All right. Hi, Jessica.
Okay. Hello. Thank you, Mayor Klein, council members. Jessica Hankins, interim city planner. So there are 2 items, as you mentioned, that are related to the use of temporary structures during construction that staff is requesting direction on. They are 2 separate types of items, so I would just like to provide a little clarity on that for you. The first is the use of temporary storage containers during construction on a construction site. Staff has received some inquiries into this, and there's some minor verbiage on this in our current zoning code that essentially says that if somebody wants a storage container, they must get a conditional use permit for that during construction. This is it's fairly unusual. Typically, storage containers are something that are seen on a lot of construction sites. Doesn't mean that we need to allow them completely, but I think the use of a conditional use permit as a planning tool is typically done more for major planning projects, for projects that might result in land use incompatibilities or environmental impacts that need to be evaluated on a site-specific basis. For the use of a storage container during construction, staff is recommending that we amend the code to allow this more as a ministerial process to reduce the level that is needed for the permitting process. A conditional use permit right now at the city costs $2,400 deposit to the actual at-cost fees. And it takes considerable staff time and resources to process one as well. And it's a discretionary process. So if somebody wanted a storage container, they are not guaranteed that they will get to use a storage container even if they pay the fees. So again, staff is requesting direction to convert the discretionary process to a ministerial process with a number of performance standards that would be used. It would essentially turn into a desktop review where an applicant would agree to those standards. These could include things like evidence of an active building permit, a timeline for removal, shielding standards, size restrictions on the storage containers, and setbacks from property lines and other residential structures nearby. So that's the first item. The second is the use of RVs and mobile homes during residential construction. This is something staff has received some requests about. There's nothing that speaks to it in the zoning code. So we, I think, have also seen through at least one of the public comment letters on this item that sometimes this just occurs.
Sorry, Council. So sorry.
Okay, that's okay. That it just
Strike one.
it occurs without permits at all because it's not addressed in the zoning code. So do we want to allow this, not allow it? If we do, I would probably recommend that we have a similar section, a similar ordinance that would allow it with a set of performance standards similar to the containers, but also including some health and safety standards because it is a residential use. They would need to hook up to sewer and water potentially, have appropriate electrical connections and that type of thing that would be handled through a building department process. So these two items were taken to the Economic and Community Development Review Committee in January. That committee provided some feedback to proceed with a recommendation to the full council to proceed with the amendments, provided that they were done with all the safeguards that I just mentioned. So that is why I'm here for you today. Happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
Questions?
I don't have questions. I got a little statement, but we can't talk about the first one, right? So I'm just going to say on the temporary structures during construction, I'm open to a clearer, more predictable path for things like construction, storage, and limited temporary occupancy, but only with guardrails that make temporary mean temporary. I would like staff to return with a well-scoped proposal that includes draft standards, time limits, and enforcement plan with a simple explanation of how the changes will help small businesses and homeowners without creating loopholes or neighborhood impacts.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we usually go to committee members first.
Oh, yeah.
That's me. Hi, folks. Thank you, Doug. I agree with much of what you said. There's a couple points I'm going to hit on. The first is that the fee of $2,405 is a barrier, and I think it's essentially a class filter. And I also think the same goes for requiring costly off-site solutions during construction. And so for me, if we allow things like storage containers, temporary structures, in a regulated, time-limited way, we lower barriers to entry. So I think that supports affordability, it supports small-scale builders, and it reflects the realities of rural construction. This isn't about allowing things to go on indefinitely. 2.5 years is far too long. Greg Chapman, I hear you. I got your message. That is a long time. We should absolutely look at clear time limits, as Mayor Fleming has said. If we make this process ministerial, I think that it provides clear standards and timelines and gives staff stronger enforcement tools for clearer expectations for everyone. So I think we can both maintain neighborhood standards and reduce unnecessary financial barriers, and that's the balance I'm interested in striking with this.
Nice.
Oh, okay. How will we measure temporary?
So that would typically be handled, I provided, I think, one example in the ECDC staff report. We could do something like a 6-month time limit with a possibility for a 6-month extension if they're showing a good faith effort on their construction. Or it could also be tied to the building permit itself, because the building department does have timelines also for permits. And typically if there's no construction happening, and the permit will just lapse after a certain period of time. So we can make that time limit anything we want, or we can tie it to the building permit.
Yeah.
I would like it to be clear, not anything we want, but actually, if we're going to do it ministerially, and it's not going to be reviewed by the commission, then I think it should be absolute and precise and clear. You get 6 months.
I didn't
It
mean
is
that I would
reviewed
decide,
by
yeah.
the commission,
Yes.
correct? Will be reviewed?
Yes, the ordinance will be reviewed by the commission. And
Absolutely.
the ordinance would need to be
Right.
crystal clear on timelines. I just meant the city can provide any timeline in the ordinance, not staff.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind my colleagues,
I am still speaking,
okay, great.
so I'll let
You
you.
can still speak.
During construction, again, how is that determined? Is it just the permit is granted and construction is presumed to begin?
Yes, it would be tied to the building permit, exactly. So if there's no building permit, we would have to require evidence of a building permit for either one of those temporary structures. And then that's why it would be probably a good idea to have a shorter timeline. Obviously, we got a comment letter that said it took 2.5 years to build one residence, and I'm sure that you could extend that out to 5 years if you wanted to. But we would define that accurately in the ordinance.
Who determines that construction has stopped and is not proceeding?
There are steps along the way with building. There are a number of inspections, and then there's a final occupancy permit.
Okay, I just want to make it clear that if we do grant this sort of allowance for either the RV THROWs or the storage containers, that the limits are quite clear, and that this is temporary, and that at any point, the city could say, you are not living up to our standards. If we're going to make it ministerial, which is to say that it doesn't go through the commission, to the planning commission, it goes simply to the planner, then we have to be very clear about that. And, okay, now, I'm done.
Oh, may I speak now? Oh, thank you.
You may.
So my point was that we are providing direction, which you seem to have done. And so the point in saying that is that she's not going to go create it and that's what's approved. Like, she's going to go create and come back, and we're going to be able to negotiate and work that. That was the only distinction I was trying to make. I'm so sorry to have interrupted you, sir.
It's okay, it's not the first time.
So,
It won't be the last.
Not the last.
so Jessica, take a breath. To be clear, it's going to go staff will come up with something based on the input you get today, take it to the planning commission, they'll sign off on some version of that, then it will come back to us one more time, is that right?
All right,
Yes.
let's go tonight.
Absolutely, yes. And so there will be a public input process, and if the council has any direction on that in terms of stakeholder groups, that's fine, but that would be a normal part of what I would try to figure out too, whether any stakeholder groups like the Contractors Association or something needed to be involved with creating or drafting the ordinance. And then a draft would go to Planning Commission, like you said, and then finally back to City Council, where it can be amended at any point along the way.
Great, thank you. And you brought this up in the first place because there's parts that just don't make much sense for our reality, and this is an effort to make it make more sense. The reality of building in a small town and so forth, fee-wise, et cetera. Thank you for bringing that to us. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Okay.
Hi.
Good evening, honorable council members. I came to actually, I was going to talk about the general business district, but we'll put that on hold. I would urge you to, as you're creating this time limit for the temporary storage facilities, to keep it as short as possible. We have a number of places around town that have grown into permanent storage, and it takes up the parking that's so badly needed. And I just urge you to kind of, as you move through this process, keep in mind that 2 years seems a really long time to have a storage facility there temporarily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Hi, my name's Harry Bennett. I have a business here in town. I just want to comment on the living while you have a building permit. About 15 years ago, I annexed a piece of property into the city and built a house from scratch. And as you know, the Nevada County Building Department does all the inspections and all that for the city. And part of our plan was to have a tiny home or, RV there while we built. And after we got the permit, we came and we found that Nevada City does not allow that. The rest of the county does already. If you have an active building permit, or this was 15 years ago, I assume they're still the same. If you have an active building permit, you can live in a RV or trailer while you're building, and I think it's a 6-month and then an extension if you need it. And because that was in our plans, in our budget, and because Nevada City didn't allow that, we weren't able to use the trailer, and we had to rent while building the place, and it probably added 20 grand onto the price. So I suggest looking into the county, because they do it. It's part of the building permit. You can, get a permit to live there. So something to consider.
Thanks for sharing that experience, Harry. Any other public comment on this item? Hearing none. Does anyone have additional direction you'd like to provide?
I do think it's important to create the distinction between storage equipment and living areas, and that they need to be looked at uniquely. I'm curious what the county's done on that, because I'm with the folks and with the commenter that we've had. Some of I only took 3 years to do my house, right? It was light speed, right? So approving live-in situations for that long and kept the permit alive all through that. So it's just something we need to think about.
Thanks, Gary.
I do have one more thing, and that is the living quarters are for the owner, right, not for the construction crew.
Correct.
Thank you. I wanted to make that clear.
Good luck with that.
I have been trying to replace my front porch for over 6 months. Fortunately, I can get in and out of my house even once they start constructing the new porch through the back door. But It's been 6 months and nothing has even started yet.
I think contractors.
Been trying.
And just to be clear, right now, there's nothing about RVs, it's just simply not in there?
That's right.
Yeah.
There's nothing in
So this
there.
would be altering it for storage containers and putting it in for RVs and, okay,
Correct.
that seems worthwhile. Okay, great. Have we provided direction, Dean, to everyone's satisfaction?
Yeah, and once again, if staff has that, this will be worked up by staff, it'll go through the planning commission, it'll come back to you for first and second reads with all kinds of opportunities for public input as well as council modification ultimately.
Great.
Thanks, Steve.
Nice, Steve.
Cool. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
See ya. All right, business item 6, receive update on Nevada City Skate Park and request for direction. Hi, Joan.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
Short
Thank
timer.
you for asking for staff input. I'll make it relatively short. You have a pretty long staff report in front of you. We're all aware that we have had recent staffing changes, and those staff were responsible for the coordination of moving this project forward. As a result of those staffing changes, I did pull together a staff meeting that included city staff that would have some type of knowledge about the project, input, and to clarify where we were on certain aspects of the project. The consensus coming out of that meeting was that we did need to have some additional direction from council on how to proceed. The planned location for the skate park is on Providence Mine Road in the Bodie Hive area. And that was the only specific site that was looked at, with the property owner willing to donate the land to the city for the project. In the ensuing time, there were some alternative options discussed about acquiring that land, including long-term leases or perhaps a recreation easement across the property. As a result, we have not finalized acquisition of that property. At the same time, we have been moving forward with a contract for design, build, and design, bid, and build. We've put a halt on that temporarily, at least until we have direction from you, in as much as that contract is not yet signed. And there has been some work done that we want to step back for a moment and just make sure that we're on the right path. In addition to that, I wanted to draw to specifically the property owner and the council that the development agreement in place for the Bodie Hive property does allow for cannabis uses on that property. There are provisions in the law that restrict location of youth-oriented activities and in proximity to cannabis businesses. So I wanted to make sure that all parties were aware of the potential restriction prior to this project moving forward on that particular site. One of the things that was discussed during our staff meeting was the fact that this was the only site looked at, that there was not an analysis of other potential sites that the project could be located on. And the city does have some properties that are city-owned that could be looked at, pros and cons to each of those sites, but nonetheless, they weren't looked at. I was able to connect with the property owner by email, and he did express in a response back to me that a review of other properties certainly might be acceptable in this case, to make certain that his property is the best option and is compatible with what the vision of the project is. So he is not opposed to looking at other potential sites. One of the other areas that has not had significant review in this project is the need for environmental review. There are various levels of environmental review depending upon the project that would need to be determined. We have not allocated funds for that portion of the project. The funds that have been allocated come from a Prop 64 cohort grant, which provides for use of funds for youth-related activities, which is where the skate park fell into some of those monies being allocated for this project, which is $750,000. That does not include various other components of the project, including clearing of the land, environmental review, long-term maintenance cost, potential replacement cost down the road in probably 15 to 20 years. All of those things really need to be identified as you move forward with securing additional funding, whether that be through donation of services, which I understand there are contractors who are interested in donating services, which certainly reduces the monetary dollars that you would need to have. Potential other grant opportunities, fundraising. So there are other potential ways to increase the amount of money that's available for this project. With that as the basic background, what the staff is looking for is for direction. Some of the options that we identified is to continue down the path that we have been going and continue to work on answering these questions that I've just outlined through that process. Another option is to put the contract that we have with Spawn Ranch, the unsigned contract with Spawn Ranch, on hold as the city would evaluate other potential sites, determine level of SEQA review that would be required, any potential zoning changes that might be required as a result of the final site location, to identify the total costs of the project, which would include, in addition to SEQA, property clearing, preparation of the land for construction, utility connections, and then the ongoing maintenance costs that I identified a moment ago. You have the $750,000 from the Prop 64 grant. Those monies do have a timeline that where they need to be expended. Depending upon the direction of staff, or to staff this evening from council, the consideration of that $750,000 to be used prior to April of 2028, which is when those monies have to be expended, would need to be taken into consideration as well. Depending upon your direction, I think staff would then need to review your direction and how that fits with whatever the direction is, and come back to you with a recommendation on whether or not the monies could be expended by that timeline. If not, you could potentially submit a request to amend that grant application to reallocate those $750,000 to something else. One of the thoughts was back to the school field project that the monies came from. There was about, I'm going to say about $1.5 million out of the $3 million total grant for that project at the school. By allocating $750,000 away from that, portions of the original Envision project at the school were not included in the final construction of that project. I think my last comment before questions from you is that I want to emphasize that this is not a statement in any way of opposition to a skate park project. It is simply to clarify the process, to get direction from you as council, so that we avoid creating any undue challenges down the road that could jeopardize the project as envisioned. With that, I would take any questions that you have.
Thanks for that, Joan. I guess we'll start with the committee.
Sure. I think this is going to probably nip it in the bud a little quicker than we probably need to. Yeah, so I want to be clear from the outset, this is not about the donation of the land. I mean, I think Mr. Anderson was genuinely, generous in donating the land. We had to scramble at one point to find another way to use this money so we didn't lose it. This is what I was told and the impression I was under. But I want to be clear, it's not about whether the property owner is willing to donate the land. I appreciate that offer. I think it's real. I think that he was just trying to do a good thing to help the city. But I think the issue is that in the rush to preserve the Prop 64 funding and keep the project moving along when the school site became somewhat uncertain, we advanced this single location path without doing full due diligence on a project like this, which is certainly warranted. At the time, Pioneer Park was already in a sensitive place with noise concerns. So the focus became on finding a better alternative quickly, and this tech center option emerged as the most immediate solution. I think it's responsible to pause, take a fresh look, and do this the right way, with a process. I would like staff to come back with the top 3 viable skate park locations in town with a clear pros and cons analysis for each, including site constraints, neighborhood compatibility, access and parking, and operational impacts, as well as a high-level CEQA profile so we can understand the schedule that's needed and the risk that we're undertaking. My one overriding concern is time. We cannot drift into the April 2028 expenditure deadline and lose funds because we failed to make decisions early. So I support a pause with a tight timeline and a clear work plan. I bring back the site analysis quickly, set a location deliberately, and then once we choose, hit the ground running with an executable agreement, signed contract, and a realistic budget and schedule. I want this I just want to make this clear. I want this project to be delivered for our skaters. And the best way to get there is a more disciplined process starting now. I just think that with a lot of the turnover in staff, some balls were dropped, and the fact that we don't have an executed contract or a control of the property is very concerning. It's a problem, and I certainly want to acknowledge that. I think we all do, but I just don't want to I just want to make sure that this doesn't derail the skate park project in its entirety. I think we can find alternate locations and do the due diligence and make sure we understand what the pros and cons of each location. If we could put this in Pioneer Park, I would love that. But I think there's a lot of pros and cons with that. And I think we need to do our due diligence on this. So that's where I'm at right now. And, I'm waiting to hear from the rest. I talked with my colleague on the committee, and we're both in agreement on this. But I'd love to hear from the rest of the council and see where we are.
Thanks, Doug.
So, you've all heard me say this. I'm a public works person. No money, no property, no project. It's pretty basic stuff. And the way this went forward, I really went back and thought a lot about how did we get here, and I looked at it and went back and reviewed the meeting of November 8th, which was extremely painful. Not because of this topic, but because we had an hour of citizens screaming at us about Palestine and accusing us of all sorts of things over which we had no control. And we were pretty fried, and then this came up, and it moved really fast. And our city manager at the time convinced us that he could I'm old, it's the reference to Solomon, but he could split the baby. And some of you may get that, some not. But the idea that the wisdom of going down the middle with the baby, you don't get 2 babies, right? But we were willing to give that a shot and go forward with this. There was never enough money. Really, there was never enough money because we didn't spec out environmental. We had the site was not secured, but also was moving around, so we didn't know what we would face. There was a shortfall from the beginning, even for the $750,000. So this is where we are. I think what I most want to know is, and I don't know who communicates with our funder, but what are the chances for an extension? Because the thing that Doug and I absolutely agree on,
we're not giving that money back. And I think we're all in agreement on that. But I'm not sure what that looks like. And if it means giving it to the school because we don't have enough time to do a skate park, I'm going to do that because it's about keeping the money in our community. But we don't know what that looks like. We haven't spoken with our funder, which I think is a really critical piece of this. They might say, fine, go ahead, extend it out. There's more money coming, and that maybe the right thing is to just restart a whole project. So I'm open to those things, but I'm absolutely adamant that one, it was not good process. It just wasn't. And two is that the primary goal that we should all be focused on is how to put that money to use in our community in the best way.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Yeah. I do want to say to folks in the room, particularly young folks, this isn't about whether or not we should or should not have a skate park. I think on November 23rd or November 8th, 2023, we all agreed that that would be a tremendous amenity to Nevada City. We want to make that happen for folks. But this is about how we got here. It's about the process. It's about how we move forward with follow through and clarity and trust. And with that being said, Councilmember Fleming, I'm pleased to hear you talk about a more disciplined process starting now, not on November 8th, 2023. And I think that due diligence certainly is something we should also look at. And I also want to speak to Gary's splitting the baby and perhaps why we had to split the baby from my vantage point. So I wrote some stuff I'd like to share with you. I think it's stuff that's been on my mind, like Councilmember Peterson. I watched the council meeting from November 8th, 2023 to kind of get a greater understanding of what happened in that meeting and how we got here. So this has been on my mind, and I believe there's some important things to acknowledge. First, the proposal that came to us on November 8th, 2023 was crafted for a particular outcome. While it went through committee, not all perspectives were at the table, and it gave the impression of a predetermined direction. My colleague had conversations, made plans, and made promises without the direction of this entire council. And by the time it reached us, expectations had already been set publicly and with our partners. That put this body in a very, very difficult position. So when commitments are made before the full council alignment, it limits our ability to deliberate openly. It creates pressure to affirm a path rather than to have evaluated it. And in this case, that pressure had real consequences. It was a process that was fraught from the beginning. There were deals made on the back of napkins at a bar, as we heard at that meeting. In November, you say this isn't about procuring the land, Doug, but November 8th of 2023, Chris Anderson, the owner of that property, said, "We are locked in." After Mayor Klein, at that time, Councilmember Klein said, "Are we locked in on that property?" He said, "We are locked in." In August of 2024, Chris Anderson provided a letter of intent saying that he was intending to give that land. I don't know what happened in that time. I don't know what happened on whose part or whatever, but that's a long time ago. And in a way, I'm kind of grateful that that happened on that property, because for me, the elephant in the room is the property. I have serious concerns about that location for a skate park. It has a high law enforcement call volume. There is lots of calls that happen to law enforcement on that property. And I could get into some of the details of the calls, but we're supposed to be using cannabis tax money intended to support substance use prevention and community health for young people. I can't, as a youth advocate, support a youth-centered skate park at a site with ongoing public safety concerns. And so if we're going to do this, I think we need to get it right. I want to do this for young people, and I want us to get it right in the right spot. And that means, one, a site that we actually control. Two, a location that aligns with our safety and prevention goals. Three, clear funding alignment. And four, a process that restores trust rather than strains it. That's what I got.
Thanks for that, Danielle. Vice Mayor Cece.
Councilmember Daniela, excellent job. Great summary. And I do want to speak to the youth in the room. I think a skate park in Nevada City is essential for our health of our community. To say that we don't need another skate park in Nevada County is ridiculous. How many ballparks do we have? How many swimming pools of public concern? And why should our kids have to take a bus or be driven to some other city to skate? And I've even spoken to kids on the street skating down the sidewalk or down the street and said, if we had a skate park here, would you go? And they said yes. So I'm all behind the end goal, which is a skate park in Nevada City. How we get there needs to be clarified. That's all.
Thanks, Luke. Yeah, I speaking only for myself, I want a skate park here. I'm not married to the idea of it being at that property. I'm married to the idea of it being in the best possible place for it to be. I do question some of the city-owned lots do seem on the small side for a project like this. That needs to be acknowledged. I think Pioneer Park would be an imperfect solution. I think we would lose too many amenities to make room for a skate park there. I look forward to seeing what staff comes back with as far as recommended spots. Maybe that will be the Bodie Hive. Maybe it will be something else. But I think it's our responsibility and our job to make sure it's in the best possible place. And as has been said, not lose that money. Because we're here to help our community, and that's money that would be a huge help to our community. I hope it helps our community in the way of creating a skate park for everyone. So just to be clear, skate park, yes. Details to come. Do we have any questions or comments on this topic?
If I could make one comment.
You have something additionally?
I
Please.
did want to just, we'll open it up, but I did want to also acknowledge that this was no easy thing for the school board either. It's important to honor the rest of the people who stand up for our community, and that this was, I think the school board had some challenges as well with this, and I just wanted to acknowledge that.
And to be more specific, they were put in a really shitty situation because we withdrew funds that we directed towards them. Not we, I guess we did in the end. So.
Just for clarification though, we were told that they couldn't use the funds as directed. And so there was a pivot by staff to find a way to allocate that money quickly. Was the process flawed? Yes, I think we've all identified that. But there was no, okey-doke deal. This was something that the city manager came and said, okay, I figured it out, here's what we're gonna do. And it went to committee, it went to council 3 times. It went to committee 3 times, and so we've all
It did not come to council 3 times.
It did.
No, it came once for a vote to redirect funds.
I'm sorry, you're wrong.
Skate park might have come to council 3 times, but to redirect funds, Doug, came once.
Well, that's because we redirected the funds.
Okay, so let's be clear on
I'm saying
that.
the skate park issue came to council 3 times, and we all green lit it over and over again. I don't want to get into this here, but, I think some of
This is the place to get into it, Doug.
Well, I don't think so. I don't think we, this is, look, there were some balls dropped. I think that some of this is on our side of the street as a city that didn't execute a good process. You want to blame that on me? You certainly can, but I didn't start the process, I didn't initiate it, and I didn't facilitate it.
You did. You started the process.
Well, I wrote a grant, and I got money. I got $3 million for us. Yeah, and, I don't see anything wrong with getting money for us, and I don't see anything wrong with supporting youth. And that's something that I'm always going to advocate for. And I talked to youth. We had 70 skaters who came in here and told us heart-wrenching stories about the need for a skate park and how skating has saved a lot of them. And so, what? Yeah, so I'm just saying that, you can sit here and cast aspersions, but we've had this in front of the council many times. And, and I also brought this to staff with recommendations of the land lease and all kinds of different things for us to get this facilitated, and it didn't happen for various reasons. And I think we all know some of those reasons, but it wasn't some inside, okey doke thing. There was a pivot. We were about to lose, $1 million. And so staff at the time pivoted and came up with a solution, and we accepted it.
That's not my point of view, but I appreciate yours.
I want to thank my colleagues for the vigorous discussion and context. And
I do have a question for Joan. If we didn't do the skate park, is there someplace we could spend the money?
It has to.
The 750,000 you're asking?
Yes.
I'm sure that you could identify where that money could be used. I think, I'm not aware of what the discussions were with the school district. Back at the time, they said they couldn't use all of that money. I would start there to find out, is that still the case? If not, that money could be reallocated back to that project. If they still are of the opinion they could not use that money, I think there are certainly many other youth-oriented types of projects that the money could be allocated to, that the council would have to give direction to amend the application, the grant, an application for the grant to be amended.
I think that's pretty accurate. I'd just like to clarify, though, that one of the things that we can do budget modifications. That's something that the BSCC will accept. One thing they're not really good on is extending the statutory time period. Yeah, so that's the only concern that I have on that. But happy to hear what staff comes up with and take it to the next level. But I just don't want to lose our skate park.
Joan, I have just a very quick question. I just wasn't clear on the Spawn Ranch not having signed the contract. Is that because they're waiting on something from us, or is it something on their end that's, we don't know?
They did have some questions and requests for language modification, which has been reviewed by legal counsel. It was at that all came about at about the same time as staff changes were occurring and we had this staff meeting. So we, after consultation with legal counsel, requested that they halt what they were doing until we had direction.
Very good. Thank you. Public comment. You got 3 minutes.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Sandra Barrington. I'm president of the Nevada City School District. I have a child at Seven Hills, and therefore I obviously live in the district. And I want to thank you so much for bringing this back to the council and the opportunity to speak this evening. First of all, very supportive of a skate park in Nevada City. I think it would be amazing. My family would utilize it. But I think as we've heard today, we're just not there yet. And there's a lot of things that need to be determined before we can move forward with the skate park. So I really appreciate that you're coming back with like a very thoughtful process to determine how to move forward. But as a resident here, I would really love to have that for my family. So I just want to make that very clear. As far as the school district goes, we are shovel ready to complete our field project. And I just want to clarify one thing that was in the staff report. It said that our field project was complete. It was not. When the funding was reduced for us, we pivoted. We came up with a phase 1, and we still have a phase 2 to be completed. And that's a field that would include ADA accessibility, safety fencing for the neighborhood, and a snack shack and bathrooms. And I just want to clarify also that it's not just for the schools, it's for the entire community. It would be an amazing community asset. and we're ready to go. We can meet your funding deadline. As a grant writer by trade, I know how hard it is to go back and fix those grant reports and have to resubmit and ask for modifications. So I'm telling you, you don't have to do that. That we can complete the field project. And I know there's more funding for the skate park out there. There's enough passion in this room for it. There's enough fundraising capacity in the community, because that's what I do by trade, so I know that. And so I just really appreciate your consideration to reallocate back to the schools so we can complete our field project and honor the original grant terms that were set forth. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Sandra.
I'm going to be speaking on behalf of our most marginalized, most disenfranchised youth that do not have access to some of these spaces where all of a sudden people are trying to think that the money's going to go to. So I just want to make sure that we understand our most marginalized, disenfranchised youth are socioeconomically disadvantaged. So good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Mary Maya. Some of you guys know me. Some of you have been pissed off at me for wrong sayings. I'm a teacher at Sierra Academy of Expeditionary Learning and a newly elected board member of Nevada County Skate. I'm here tonight to respectfully propose a space. This has been already kind of in the works, but not about a skate park. And it's been done with some of you. So I kind of want to bring that out. This proposal, including some that my colleagues mentioned in the crazy text this evening, like the Hugh Building and the Root Center, I don't know what those are, but they mentioned them, would be also to explore the possibility of developing a dedicated skate park on the blacktop area and garden dirt area at Sale for use during out of school hours, non-use hours. And this is to be explored further because if you know Sale, you know it's just an unutilized area. The blacktop and green spaces have been underutilized and neglected for some time. If any of you have gone there, I teach a skate elective. We call the blacktop the cheese grater. And there's a reason, because your leg, your hands look like you just went through a cheese grater when you fall down. However, it holds incredible potential. Nevada City has a large and growing skate community. And with restrictions on skateboarding in the historic district, which we all know about, there are limited legal spaces for youth and adults to ride. Creating a designated skate park at this location would provide a safe, structured, and appropriate place for skating while preserving the integrity of the downtown. As both an educator and a big skate advocate, I've seen, because I don't skate, please understand, I do not, will not get on those. I've seen firsthand how skateboarding builds resilience. It builds belonging, inclusivity, and positive community engagement, especially for our marginalized, disenfranchised, socioeconomically disadvantaged. A thoughtfully designed skate park at Sale could serve not only students, but families and residents throughout the city. This is not a fully developed plan tonight. It's really an invitation to begin exploring feasibility, partnership, and funding opportunities. With collaboration between the city, Sale, Nevada City School District, and Nevada County Skate, I believe this space could become a meaningful asset for our youth and our broader community. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Maya.
Hi, John.
Mayor Klein, Council, thank you for having me. My name is John Baggett. I'm the superintendent in Nevada City School District. Couple of clarifications that I'd like to make about what was discussed tonight. The original plan, there was never really any discussion about that we could not spend the funds. The only change in the plan was that we originally worked with the city council, or the city manager on the grant. Many emails back and forth. We worked on the grant together with Doug involved, and we wrote the grant for the Seven Hills field and the bathrooms and the baseball diamonds and all of that. The only change that was ever discussed was that turf was not acceptable. That was the only change, and so we had many people that want to play on that field 24/7, they wanted turf. And most, as you know, most people are going with turf. But we had, our board was on either side of that also. But I heard that the council would not support anything but real grass. And really the community, and I worked with the community that lives in the area, and everyone said, we want real grass. So that was the only change, real grass. And we were asked, do you want to just not do the project? We're like, no, we're going to figure out how to make this work. So we did make it work just to have the field. We had to scale back the project. The biggest piece is we had to get the drainage, irrigation, all of that done. But as Sandra Barrington, our board president, said, there's phase 2, we now call it. There was no phase 2. It was all going to be done. And was frankly surprised when I got a call that the money was going to be essentially taken, half of it or more than half of it, way more than half of it, toward a skate park. So that was a big surprise. And you can imagine, as a superintendent, I asked Mr. Grayson for a award letter, which I did receive the award letter. Because I never want to go out in front of my board and say, hey, we're getting $1.5 million or $1 million. I asked for that award letter, I saw it in writing, and I presented it to my board, and then later I have to eat crow and backtrack and say, actually, we're not going to get $1.5 million, we're going to get 750 taken away. So that's really the history of it. This is about process, and I believe Gary said it in 2023. There's a process, and the process hasn't really gone well. And so I'm definitely not against the skate park. I think I said this in 2023. I used to take my daughter to the skate park all the time in Grass Valley. I'm not against the skate park, but a well-planned space. And also the fire safety location that has been a concern, as well as looks like I'm out of time. But I would just recommend slowing down and
John.
making the right decision.
Thank you, John. Howdy.
Hi, Council. My name's Caleb. I live in Penn Valley, but it's a small county. We all get around. I'm just here to show my appreciation to you guys for taking your time and due diligence throughout this process. Thank you for sharing the kind of timeline of how we are where we are at. I would like to point out and just make reference to some of our not so far away neighbors in Colfax that have been going through a process like this for over 15 years trying to get a skate park. I would hate for something like that to happen here. It sounds like there is we are all excited and looking forward to getting a skate park. I'm not super familiar with government and quite how it works, but it would be cool if there was some sort of timeline we could lay out to hit potential goals at certain times. So there was follow through on possibly both ends. I know there's multiple nonprofits in the county that do fundraise for money for skate stuff, whether that's like utilities at skate parks or benches or whatever events. But yeah, I just want to say thank you again for holding the space and listening to your community.
Thank you. Hi, Kathy.
Good evening again, Honorable Council. My name is Kathy Wilcox Barnes, and I would like to thank you for this opportunity to give input on the proposed skateboard park. As a lifelong resident of Nevada City, I commend you for continuing to improve the recreational opportunities available to us citizens, and you've been doing an awesome job. And I have to say, at some point, I would be in favor of the skateboard park. I'm not now. You've taken on, this is not the right time or the proper location, I think. We, citizens have been faced with doubling insurance rates, the possibility of water and sewer rates that may more than double, rising gas, garbage, food, and just about every other cost you can imagine. The economy is in a very tenuous position right now, and many of us are on fixed incomes that we just can't keep up. The city itself has faced mounting costs. To your credit, you have recently rescued and breathed new life into the Miners Foundry, and I really thank you for that. It's become a real hub of community activity, and However, in order to accomplish that Herculean task, you had to add to your inventory of facilities, in addition to all the other parks, buildings, parks, streets, trails, and all the other things that you have to maintain, plus staffing. These additions create an additional burden on the citizens. There's grant money now to build the skateboard park, and even that may not be enough to cover expenses as discussed, but it falls on the citizens to fund the long-term maintenance. Water and sewer facilities are funded by enterprise funds, and you can raise rates to cover those costs. But a new skateboard park would be in the general fund along with most of the other expenses of the city. I'm asking what long-term funding is available for maintaining the skateboard park in the future. In the end, it all comes out of the citizens' pockets through one means or another. Opportunities come before you. We all have our wants and we have our needs. And this one, as council members, you're faced with those and the difficult task of balancing those wants and needs in a fiscally responsible way. This skateboard park is a want, and I would say give the money to the school right now. Put this skateboard park on the back burner and use that money for the schools that can provide recreational facilities that serve a far greater number of the community at this point in time. Thank you. And I'm out of time, but I just want to thank your interim city manager for the wonderful job. It's been really nice getting to know you. I know your time with us is ending. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other public comment on this topic?
Hi there. My name is Orion. I'm a skater in the skate community. I'd like to second what Caleb said and say let's not be like Colfax and take 15 years. Think you've already allocated the money to being built for going to the building of a skate park. Let's use it that way. There are tons of youth in this community who could use a skate park here in Nevada City. It'll do wonders. Grass Valley just got a new park. It's not big enough for all the skaters that are in this county. So let's build it. I think it's on you guys to do the due diligence to find another spot. If Bodie Hive is not going to work, there's Pioneer Park, there's, like you said, other city properties. Let's get out and look at them this week, next week, and figure it out. Please don't laugh at me.
I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you guys made the decision. Even if the school doesn't like it, they got half, we got half. I work for a school, and I love money going towards schools, but I also love it going towards the community and the things that youth do outside of school, because they're not in school all day. They need somewhere to go after school. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
I'm Marcy Harrison. I live on Heilman, and I kind of head up the neighborhood committee that was kind of fighting this whole thing. And the reason we were fighting the thing is because it has no business going to Bodie Hive. Between the fire and the access and everything else, it just was very, very problematic. But also, none of the procedures were handled correctly. None of the procedures were handled at all. Both my husband and I came to the meeting where the railroad committee got a big congratulatory because everything they did was right. They did the permitting right. They did the neighborhood thing right. We had not ever been contacted by anybody about any of this. Literally nothing that the railroad committee had done, had the city done to move this project forward. And we've been fighting it for a long time for that reason. But I also wanted to remind all of you, I was at the meeting where you voted to give the contracts for the bid. And both my husband and I got up and spoke. I talked about fire, I talked about access. He talked about the CEQAs and all the permits. In fact, this is a mine site, which half the council didn't even realize. And less than 5 minutes later, every single one of you voted to extend that contract. So to me, that was the most disappointing thing in the world, because that meant none of you had done your research. And it was downright scary, and has been kind of an overriding scary point. So I'm glad to see that you're kind of waking up and realizing the responsibilities that you hold here. We all really look up to you, and we really look up to the work you do and what you provide for our city. But you've got to start listening to people and taking a very, very critical eye on the money. We have two choices tonight. If we continue with the skateboard, we asked at one of the meetings, how many people will this affect? And Lon told us 46. We've done our research, 46 people. Well, the school alone is about 700. The entire community is, what were the numbers?
3,000.
A couple thousand. And that doesn't include parents and everyone else that comes to see ball games and use the field. My husband and I go over and star watch because there's no peripheral lights around it. But we back up almost to the school. But the school they already know what they want. They couldn't afford to finish the things in the first place, so they know where that money's going. There's not going to be any question of that. There's no due diligence that any of you have to do on that. And that's a huge difference compared to what you're being asked now to find a spot and everything else. So just the sheer numbers that we support with one or the other and the money involved, we are always going to be they're going to be coming after money for the skateboard park. Where the schools, that's it. They
Thank
get
you.
it or they don't.
Hey, Scott.
Howdy. Hi, my name's Scott, local resident. I basically have some advice, not that I know how to do your job, but I was pretty involved in the Grass Valley process, and I think some decisions were made early on in that process, and then only really analyzed really far into the process, and I think we could have ended up with a better solution or just a better version of that situation. So I do support really doing your due diligence and looking at these properties. Bodie Hive is probably an imperfect property, but I think probably all of them are imperfect in some way. And if the donation of the property helps the project move along, I think you can always improve the atmosphere or the environment around that property down the line. I rent at Bodie Hive. I know it's a lot of things, certainly, but it's not all bad. It seems like a lot of people have negative things there. Just want to say that. And then the other thing that came up in the Grass Valley situation was, it seems like, I don't know who goes after grants necessarily for different things, but there's micro grants that people don't go after for, I'm not sure what reason, if they just don't want to do the paperwork or whatever, but if we're short on funds, it seems like the city will go for the biggest grant they can get and kind of ignore smaller grants to fill in the gaps. So if that's at all a possibility, I think it's worth looking into so we can get the budget to where it needs to be. That's pretty much it. It sounds like we're all want a skate park, and I just want that process to be done right so we end up with something we're all happy with and the community actually, benefits from. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Robert, lifelong resident. I just want to add a couple things that I haven't heard discussed or brought up. We do have a large network of contractors, licensed contractors, volunteers. Skate culture comes from a DIY punk kind of background where we do things ourselves. We just need the go ahead. We can all come together. You guys will be impressed. That's what happened in the first round with the first skate park originally. A lot of stuff was donated. Second off, I think it almost seems like the older generation might be a little out of touch. And just because it's not your demographic, Some of the numbers are kind of being thrown out there, like 40 people are affected. Every kid that goes to school rides a skateboard, rides a scooter, rides a bike. They will all use this facility. So to say that one spot is more important, everything's important, but I think numbers are a little off in that regard. Third off, I want to give props to Bodie, because you had a community member that was trying to figure out something. Yeah, it may not have gone perfectly, but honestly, that guy was willing to do whatever he could. It didn't work out, obviously, but you know what? At least we had someone that stood up for us and tried to do something, okay? It kind of seems like someone like that is doing more than people who are elected to help us. It's getting ridiculous because there are skate parks in every small, medium, large city, all up and down the I-80 corridor, up I-5 into Nevada. You see Fernley has a skate park. All these small towns they're popping up everywhere, and we're still kind of like left in the dust. So basically, yeah, to reiterate, we have a large network of volunteers. Figure it out, please. That's all I'm asking. We don't, like he said, Colfax, unfortunately, they've been stuck in that rut. Truckie's been stuck in the rut. I mean, there's got to be something you guys can all do. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Any other public comment? Okay, thanks everybody for that. Any more comments from the table?
I did have one. It was correctly pointed out that there will be a cost to maintaining a skate park once we build it. But I'd like to point out that there is a cost if we don't build it. And that is cost falls on the youngest of the people here. Their mental health, their physical health, their sense of belonging. And often that cost will fall on the least of the people who can least afford to bear it. And so we can't just think in terms of dollars. We have to think in terms of the health of the kids of this community.
Thanks, Lou.
Well said, Lou.
Really appreciate that.
I remember when I went to Nevada Union High School, a lot of the focus and money and attention was put on the football program there. And that meant very little to me. I was not in the target demographic for that. But when you live in a society, you realize that not everything has to be for you. And it is to my benefit that the football players have this after-school program where they can go and practice and play and achieve excellence. And that kept them from pushing me into the lockers. So it worked out for everybody. So projects like this don't have to be for you specifically to benefit you. If other people in your area, in your neighborhood, are being taken care of on a spiritual level, your life improves. That's what I've got to say on that. Joan, do you feel like staff has had direction from our earlier discussion?
Yes, I do.
How splendid. Thanks, everybody, for that lively discussion. It's now time for reports and future agenda items. Joan, would you like to begin?
Sure. So I don't have a specific report on future agenda items at this point. I think we've identified a few here this evening. I would like to say this is my last council meeting here during my tenure as your interim city manager. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be back for a second time. And the confidence that you've shown in me in having me back. It's been my honor to be back here. So I just, it's been a pleasure for me, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
You have anything to close us out?
All our committees were canceled due to snow.
Dang.
Yeah.
That happened.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see, we got the kickoff meeting for our preservation, hardening of the historic district. It's always interesting starting out with a new committee, trying to figure out what we're supposed to do. But I think that's a good idea. It's going to be a very important conversation, so that was good. Along the lines of fire, congratulations to the Firewise Community Coalition of Nevada County, I think is the name. But the folks that did the Hearts on Fire event at the Foundry, the Friday night before Valentine's Day, and brought together representatives from the fire-wise communities throughout the county. It was very inspiring and very good. So that's what I got. Committees canceled, and I was busy making snow angels.
Of course you were. Thank you, Carrie. Danielle?
Yeah, no committees, but I did attend as a delegate the state Democratic Convention in San Francisco this last weekend. It was a mixed bag, y'all. I saw a lot of young people, brown people, queer people doing exciting things in their communities. And then I saw a lot of elders holding on to old ways in contrast to that, not unlike some of what's happening here in this room tonight. And in that vein, I would like to speak to my colleague, Lou Cece, and just say, I mean you no disrespect. I think we have different values. I think you have a value of decorum, and I have a value of community conversation. And so my intention was not to interrupt you. I spoke when there was a space during a time that you thought belonged to you. And so I've been here for 6 years sitting at this table. My style has always been to be in conversation with my colleagues as opposed to you speak, then I speak, then he speaks, then he, then he, then he. You notice there's a lot of he's at the table, right? And so I just want to note that I do not share that value of this old school notion of decorum, but I do have a value of community conversation. My intent was not disrespect. It was a variance in style.
Thanks, Daniela.
I am still getting used to Daniela, and I still like you because you bring something to this table that I don't. You bring spontaneity. Most people can tell I think things through quite a bit. And what may strike you as decorum is just my little gears going clickety, clickety, click. And sometimes a comment might get me off my track. And I want to get to where my point is. I also don't have any committees to report out. I would like to hear if we are going to have an agenda item to discuss what to do with Lower Coyote Street between 49 and Alexander. That's an ongoing issue, and I do serve and am now chair of the Nevada County Transportation Committee. So if the council is going to have a position on that, I'd like to hear about it before the next meeting, which is in March.
I would like to meet with you about that.
Very good.
I have some information to share that I think is very important.
Good. And I would also like to hear when we are going to have any public input on the water rates and how we're going to implement them. That's it for me.
Thank you, Lou. I'd just like to say that the last time Joan was here and filled in, it was before Lou and I joined the council, and we showed up just after that and heard nothing but praise for Joan, who had stepped in and righted the ship. And despite the circumstances, it has been great to get a chance to work with you. I feel like it is to my benefit as a mayor that I had you to work with, and we will miss you, and we thank you for once again saving the day.
Mr. Mayor, can I give a legal committee report?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi, Dean.
Hi.
We got a legal committee.
So I just want to also thank Joan. This is my second stint with Joan here in Nevada City. We were brought on a while ago to handle some stuff, and she came back the second time that we asked her. And she's one of the most amazing managers I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot. And we dubbed ourselves Team P&P. And I think that she's definitely served the city well, and she does it from the bottom of her heart. So thank you for doing that, Joan.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah.
I just want to say that, one of the things about this council that's so important is that we can have the conversations that we just had about all of this, but about how we are with each other and how we respect each other and work so hard to get it right. We're very different people, and we're very different styles, but I really appreciate that
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks all. Do I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
Adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.